It is a wonderful morning. Quite frankly, I do not know what day it is. Isn't that funny? I do not even know what day it is. But that's because I just came back yesterday from our wonderful short vacation to Auburn. And I enjoyed it so much. And now I'm here in Chico again, riding my bicycle again. And talking again about what could become a fundamental change in the way Americans perceive what has been known as the American dream. Yeah, I would like to replace that word American dream with American reality. American reality described by verbal behavior. Yeah, by a verbal behavior that is embodied. Yeah, so embodied language. Yeah, that is the language of individual freedom. And so, yes, I do direct my words to my fellow Americans in this case. Although I also speak, of course, with everybody who is in favor of freedom. Yeah, you cannot be in favor of freedom if you are not in favor of the freedom of yourself, of the individual. And if, for whatever reason, you are incapable of distinguishing between your own disembodied language and your own embodied language, then you are not having any freedom. You may talk about it, you may refer to it, you may long for it, or you may fight even for it, yeah, but you're not having it. Because you can only have your individual freedom if you have embodied language. And this is not, individualism is it not an American, privilege? Yeah, there are many countries in which individuals have individual freedom. There are many places in the world where we can begin to distinguish between our embodied language, in which we experience our individual freedom, and our disembodied language, in which we obviously experience a sense of imprisonment, a sense of limitation, a fear of punishment, a fear of that we may be imprisoned, or that we may be tortured, that we may be killed. And so it is for everybody so important to recognize that freedom is available even if you are living in a country where there is a oppressive government. Yeah, there are so many countries like that. Yeah, there's only a very small portion of the world where people have individual freedoms. Yeah, in Europe, in some parts of South America, in Australia, but then in large parts like China, India, you could say there is some freedom, although you wonder how much freedom there is. There's no freedom. I don't like this whole sociological analysis. I'm gonna quit it. But you get the picture, right? I mean, it is true that with your embodied language you can observe all this, and I leave it to others to further figure that out sociologically, culturally, whatever, linguistically. I don't care about all these things. I care about only my own embodied language. And I know when I'm having it, yeah. I know that if I go on talking about what I was just talking about, then even a person like me doesn't have any embodied language anymore. So I'm not gonna make any, what is it? I'm not gonna make any claims that I cannot back up, or I'm not gonna make myself seem like as if I'm somebody special who knows something, or who has a different, let me put it this way, who has a different background than most other people, because I was just like everybody else. I was also conditioned with disembodied language. Yeah. And I still experience the consequences of that conditioning history, and so I take care of it. That's why I'm making these videos. And this is just my verbal hygiene, my ability to sort of set myself straight. And I do this because I like it, but I also do it because I need it, and because I want to, and because it keeps me sane. Because if I wouldn't do this, I would be insane. And you would probably think, "Oh, but you are insane." Well, okay then. Then you may call me insane, but what you call insanity, I call sanity, and what you call sanity, I call insanity, because your disembodied language is insane, and my embodied language is just a way of talking in which I, as a speaker, listen to myself. I hear myself. Yeah, I can feel what I experience while I'm talking. That's wonderful. To me, that is sanity. And if you cannot do that, you are insane, in my opinion. And that's why the whole world is insane. Because disembodied language is everywhere, and embodied language is nowhere to be found. Only here, with me. Yeah. So, good morning. So, I know that it is of great value to listen to yourself, to speak with yourself, so that you can listen to yourself. And I find it so fascinating, but at the same time it is also unintelligent. It is shameful. Yeah, it is extremely problematic, extremely destructive, extremely arrogant also, that we refuse to acknowledge that this issue that I'm addressing, this very simple issue of listening to yourself while you speak, it is amazing that we don't get to it. In spite of it being so troubling, Yeah, because if you do not listen to yourself, you are experiencing all kinds of shit, and you make it seem as if that's normal, as if that you need to accept that, you need to, I don't know, have a thicker skin or whatever. You need to just not let it bother you, dissociate from whatever it is that bothers you, and make yourself do what you have to overcome that, and to ignore that, and to make it seem as if you are living a great life. But it's all just pretense. It's all just make-believe. It's all just phony. It's not real. Yeah, you cannot be yourself if you as a speaker do not listen to yourself. If you as a speaker separate yourself from being your own listener. And this is how language sets the stage for everything you do, everything you believe, everything you, everything you pursue, because every goal that you may have, any kind of priority that you might have, is of course deriving from how you describe your reality with your language. And if you describe your reality with your language in such a way that you're not listening to yourself, then how can it be your reality which you are describing with your disembodied language? It cannot. It just cannot. Your reality as you experience it, your lived experience, can only be described with your embodied language. And this either or aspect of the embodied language, disembodied language distinction, it's either or. It is an absolute difference. You either have your eyes open or your eyes closed, and you either listen to yourself or you don't. And your inability to acknowledge that prevents you from having language for your own experience. You cannot describe with your disembodied language your own experience. So good morning. Hi. So that's what I do on this recording, on every recording. And I will continue to do this because it's not my belief. No, this has nothing to do with any belief. Belief deals with inner language. And I don't have any reason why I should hold myself back from saying that again. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of reason to say that again. There is no inner language. All language is overt. There cannot be any words or sentences inside of you. What is inside of you is not language. And you can talk like that as if there is. But that doesn't mean that it is so. There's organs inside of you, there's bones inside of you, lungs and your liver and your intestines, blood, nerves. That's what is inside of you, but there's no language inside of you. And you keep making it seem as if there is language inside of you. And because of that, the overt nature of language is twisted by you with your disembodied language, where you make it seem as if the imaginary language that goes on inside of you is more important than the overt language which you obviously hear when you say it, and which you can only hear if you say it. Yeah? So if you don't say anything, you can't hear anything, and then there is no language inside of you. Yeah. That's such a nice, simple way of saying it, but that's just how it is. And if you haven't said this to yourself, if you've never heard yourself saying this, how are you supposed to adhere to this? How are you supposed to live according to the reality that it is true? Yeah? That it is true that there is no inner language. That it has always been true that all language was overt. And that language never ever was covert, even though generations of people have said it was so. And in different cultures all across the world. Yeah? Yeah. It's up to you to set the record straight and to tell yourself as often as you need to, as often as you want to, as often as you can. Yeah, because you will have to create a situation in which it is possible. If you do not create that situation, if you do not even know that situation in which it is possible, in which it will happen, yeah, your embodied language will happen under certain circumstances. And if you do not know what these circumstances are, like I do, no, if you know, yeah, I mean, I know these circumstances, yeah. So I know what it takes to have embodied language. So, and you have to stop your disembodied language. You have to know your disembodied language. You have to know also the circumstances in which disembodied language occur. Yeah? This is so simple. If you cannot avoid the circumstances in which disembodied language can and will occur, you will not be able to have embodied language. So here I am saying this for the 5th millionth time, and just sort of pleasing myself, just nourishing myself, just praising myself, acknowledging myself, yeah, just honoring myself, and yeah, I mean, this is not just about me. Yeah, of course I do this for myself, absolutely, but anyone who hears this, anyone who listens to what this is, what I'm talking about, anyone who listens and understands. Yeah, it's not you don't listen to understand. No, listening is understanding. If you're not understanding what this is, you're not listening. And if you're not listening to me in such a way that you would be listening, if you would be listening to yourself, because that is how I would like you to listen to me. Yeah, I am speaking here and I'm listening to myself. So you can only hear what I'm saying, you can only understand what I'm saying if you listen to me in the same way as I listen to myself. And I'm explaining to you, you can follow how that listening, that self-listening, how that works. Yeah? I ride my bicycle here on this wonderful path. This is the situation that I was just referring to. The situation in which it is possible for me to have embodied language and to explore it and to go on with it. So I know the situation in which embodied language occurs. And I'm not saying that this is the only situation, of course not. No, there are many other circumstances in which you are away from the environment in which disembodied language happens, and then you will naturally have embodied language. It's just as simple as that. If it can occur, it will occur. And if it doesn't occur, it simply means that you haven't arranged for the contingency of embodied language to happen. So, if you're still supporting the contingency in which disembodied language happens because of your, your false beliefs, your superstitions, especially, of course, your belief in inner language, then you're not going to have any embodied language. And so, you may listen to me until you're blue, but you're not going to get anything out of it because you're not speaking with yourself, you're not listening to yourself. So, that's what this is all about. You need to create for yourself the contingency in which your embodied language can and will occur. And I'm doing that every time. And I don't care that I am using the words which I have already used. And sometimes I use the words I have already used and I have to acknowledge, like, okay, these very words that I'm using, they are actually not helpful. And so certain words you could call trigger words or whatever, certain words are better to be, not said. They are better to... Look, I can give you an example here. There are, of course, strong emotions attached to, whatever people their religious beliefs are and their political beliefs. Well, let me say this. I just want to give one broad statement about that. And maybe this is where I'm going to leave the issue as such. But it is, of course, true that whenever these words are used, let's say you're speaking about the Republican Party, you're speaking about Trump, or you're speaking about Christianity or Islam, that immediately triggers a whole set of circumstances which not necessarily create the contingency for disembodied language. I'm not saying that it necessarily is these words that do that. However, the tendency to do that, the conditioning history that everybody has to do that is very probable. So there's a high probability that when we talk about religion or politics, that we're gonna be eternally stuck in disembodied language. And let's just make no mistake about it. We politics as we know it and religion as we know it is of course all based on disembodied language. So let's just be general about it and let's just get over it. Because embodied language, you can trace it back to certain historical events which are involved in how we have dealt with religion and politics, of course. Because you can also say, like, okay, our embodied language, of course, can be traced back to our history with disembodied language. It's the same thing. But every time you do that, every time you sort of just go back again to to how the past has created what is happening now, you are not talking about what's happening now. You cannot be talking about what's happening now. You are incapable of talking about what is happening now. What's happening now has nothing to do with the past. Yeah, of course, the past is there, and the past is at the stage for what's happening now. Okay, we can agree on that, and we can endlessly talk about that, but what is happening now? Yeah, that is what can only be talked about if we have embodied language. So do you see that in disembodied language, we're either talking about the past, we're either talking about the future, but we're never talking about what's happening now. We cannot. And that is all, that is all caused by one and the same phenomenon. Yeah, the speaker and the listener have become separated in disembodied language. Yeah. And so another aspect of the separation between the speaker and the listener is, of course, the hierarchical structure in which speakers and listeners are, you could say, stratified by society's, you could say society's different levels of society, where certain people have authority because they are, as speakers, more important presumably than others, and others, they just have to listen. They just have to do as they are told. They just have to understand. They have to pay attention. Oh, by the way, this is a very interesting aspect of disembodied language to further pursue in this video. Of course, anyone who has any kind of inkling about the possibility of embodied language is immediately smacked down by this hierarchical structure in which a person basically turns against the hierarchy, turns against authority, turns against the group, the group behavior that is involved in maintaining that hierarchical structure, because that's a group behavior. Disembodied language is a group behavior. Any person who has only the slightest notion that, of course, it must be possible to just talk about my own experience, of course it must be possible to accurately describe my own lived experience. Anybody who has ever tried that, who has ever caught on to that somewhat, and who has ever recognized in more or less that yes, you would like to talk about what you actually experience, but you can't, because the disembodied language of others doesn't allow it, and you do not know that it's called disembodied language. You do not know that talking accurately, correctly about your own experience is embodied language. You do not know. You've never explored this difference for yourself. So if you've heard maybe me saying that, then you only have it from hearsay. You do not have it based on your own exploration. If you have explored this on your own and determined for yourself that it is indeed absolutely true, 100% true, unequivocally true, that there's a difference between having your eyes open or having your eyes closed. Here, oh my gosh, where will I go if I keep riding my bicycle with my eyes closed? I will end up in the bushes. So I'm not going to do that. No. Now, why would I not listen to what I myself am Why would I not listen to what I myself am saying? That's a question one needs to ponder over. And if one explores that, if one answers that question, because you have your own answer to that, yeah, you want to impress others, you want to belong, yeah, you want to be accepted, understood, you want to be, yeah, you want to win, yeah, because there's a competition going on, everybody is competing for the attention of others, and you want to get attention from others, and yet, yeah, you are not giving any attention to yourself because you're not listening to yourself. Isn't it interesting? Yeah. So, okay, so now you are telling yourself something important, that, okay, it is true, there is a difference, and yes, we are all conditioned to listen to others or to make others listen to us, but we're not listening to ourselves. Wow. Yeah. Now, okay, now you're having embodied language because you acknowledge the ubiquity of disembodied language. Disembodied language is everywhere, but you are only having a little bit of embodied language finally when you realistically accept, acknowledge, describe, explain to yourself that, oh my gosh, so everybody is constantly arguing, fighting, trying to dominate each other, trying to exploit each other, trying to defend, trying to pretend, trying to make it seem as if they understand, as if they're listening, trying to make it seem as if they respect, as if they care. Yeah, but they are having disembodied language. Because in embodied language, you don't do any of that. Now, what I'm explaining here, and the point I was trying to make, and I'm just, this is something that I always do. I get carried away too. Because it is just so intriguing. And I always come back to it, so don't worry. But my point that I was trying to make when I was saying previously, I have a point that I want to sort of further address in this video. The point that I am going to link to this issue is the fact that listening is such a problem in, you could say, ordinary conversation. Yeah, oh, we need to be better listeners. We need to practice attentive listening. Yeah, we need to be more mindful. But we need to be more, attentive and pay more attention, and be in the moment. Yeah, how do you do that? All the things that we have said that we should be doing. Oh, we should be better listeners. Yeah. We all want to be listened to, supposedly. We all want to be heard by others. But nobody realizes that we actually want to be able to hear ourselves. Nobody realizes that it's not to others that we want to listen or that we need to listen. No, we need to listen to ourselves. And we can only listen to others to the extent that we are listening to ourselves. And if we are not listening to ourselves, we can only pretend to be listening to others. And that's exactly what we're doing with our disembodied language. So there's a big problem. The problem is not how we speak. No. The problem is that we are not listening good enough. We are not understanding enough. And we need to have more arguments to convince each other that it is this way and that it is that way. No. It's all just totally wrong. Totally, utterly wrong. We're disconnected from what we're saying. And that sets the stage for all this argumentation and all this one-upping each other. And that forever sets us apart as speakers and as listeners. We need to listen to ourselves. When we all engage in embodied language, we are all listening to ourselves. And so we speak then with each other in the same way as we speak with ourselves. As a matter of fact, this whole issue of speaking with others is then a way in which we talk with ourselves, because the other, as I've said so many times and will repeat again here at this moment, the other, you are my experience. I repeat, you, whatever I believe you to be, whatever I experience you to be, yeah, whatever I say you are or whatever I assume you are my experience. You are my ability to describe you. You are my perception of who you are. And also not who you are, but who you can be, because who you are obviously is something really terrible with your disembodied language, but who you can be with your embodied language is something wonderful. But you're not going to be who you can be if you're not going to stop your morning, if you're not going to stop that disembodied language. So that is just, something that is only going to happen if you begin to speak with yourself. Yeah. And so what happens if you speak with yourself, just like what I do right now, is that you lose track of the illusion that there is a speaker. And you lose track of the illusion that there is a listener. Yeah? There's neither a speaker inside of me who speaks, nor is there a listener inside of me who listens. There's just speaking and there's just listening while speaking. It happens simultaneously. And so and it is this joining or not joining, this understanding, because nothing is joined. Forget about joining. Yeah, we just talk about it that way, but no, the speaker is the listener. No, there is no speaker, there is no listener, there's no joining of the speaker and the listener. There's just the way in which a person is able to speak and listen at the same rate. Yeah? So that's what I'm doing right now. And there's also, of course, the possibility of speaking and listening, which happen at different rates. And then you will have what I call disembodied language. If you do more speaking than listening, you will have disembodied language. If you do more listening than speaking, you will have disembodied language. So either you speak too much and you listen too little, or you listen too much and you speak too little. That's why you're having disembodied language. So either you need to bump up your listening behavior or you need to bump up your speaking behavior. But the paradox here is, how do you bump up your listening behavior? This is getting really interesting. Because if you keep speaking in a way that you don't want to listen to yourself, you're not going to listen to yourself. And that's exactly what you do in disembodied language. You unknowingly keep speaking in a way that you don't want to hear yourself. All right. Well, then you keep having disembodied language. And okay, at some point maybe you'll recognize that and you say, okay, whoa, gee, if that's what's happening, well, then I should speak a different way so that I begin to listen to myself. Yeah. Hello. Can you? When are you old enough to say that? When are you, realistic enough, pragmatic enough, scientific enough, logical enough to say this? Yeah. Okay. Well, I can say it. Anyone can say it. I mean, the problem is not that it's so hard to say it. The problem is you do not have the attention that you need to be able to say this. Your attention is always with others. So as long as you keep busy with others, you are not having that attention to be able to say this. So Again, I was drifting away again from my point. I keep wanting to go back to that point. I haven't yet made it. Kind of, but not really. You know, the point that I'm making is that there's a problem with listening. There's a problem with paying attention. And these attentional problems that people have, yeah, well, we call it all kinds of names. Attention deficit disorder, ADHD, yeah, ADD, hyperactivity disorder, which is also an aspect of that. And then you have, of course, the whole spectrum of autism and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, of course, you can say there's, of course, organic stuff going on, and maybe there's neurologically something going on due to which people are atypical. All that can be true as well. But I'm just talking about the lack of attention, and I don't care. I see that a lot of our problems with attention, and which are, of course, especially prevalent in those people that have these, you know, spectrum issues and these, yeah, attentional deficits. I would like to say that also people with all kinds of so-called mental health issues, yeah, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, you name it, people having psychoses, people having obsessions and compulsions, all that is also related to attention. Attention for what? Well, attention for language, for our own language. Attention of the speaker for the listener, and attention of the listener for the speaker, the bidirectional attention of the speaker and the listener. So in embodied language, of course, there is turn taking, where somebody says something and somebody else can say something, and we take turns, and we are one moment the speaker and the next moment we are a listener, but we're talking with each other in embodied language in a different way, because the conversation is not between the speaker and the listener. No, the conversation is between a speaker and him or herself. And so it is a self-contained conversation in which the speaker who speaks hears him or herself. And so the listener who is not the speaker who hears himself hears a speaker who hears him or herself. And that listener understands immediately, without any effort, without any problem, such a speaker, because that listener is going to understand that such a speaker who listens to himself is a different speaker than a speaker who doesn't listen to himself. So that listener who is not the speaker, that listener who is listening to a speaker who is listening to himself, that listener is, in a sense, just like the speaker who is listening to himself. That listener connects his own listening to that speaker with his own speaking while listening. Yeah, of course. Because he can speak like this too. But you don't, because you don't know about it. You do not have the attention for this. The attention is always with others. But in embodied language, as I was saying, the attention is on yourself. And so the whole attentional problem is solved completely. Yeah? And so now speaking means listening. Yeah? And speaking means understanding. And then speaking means problem solving. Yeah? Speaking means being realistic about reality and describing reality correctly. Our lived experience is part of the reality. It's an objective reality. Either we live our lives which are happy and which are fulfilling and which are meaningful, or we live lives which are meaningless, which are chaotic, which are full of disasters and problems and stresses and anxieties and fears and endless frustrations and disappointments and and hate and all kinds of terrible things, violence, brutality. So these realities are equally real, but when are we going to talk about it? When we have full attention for ourselves. Do you hear this noise? I'm coming to the freeway. Yeah, that's the freeway of disembodied language, and you can hear it. Yeah. And disembodied language, it ain't no joke. It is a real ugly, nasty, horrific reality that it creates. And so, this attentional problem, yeah, that we are not listening to ourselves, that we're not understanding ourselves, that we're not respecting ourselves, that we're not really communicating effectively, all that kind of stuff, because all of that is involved, that we're not saying it correctly enough, that we're using the wrong language, that we're, I don't know, rubbing each other the wrong way, that we disagree, that we argue, and that we're trying to convince each other, trying to coerce each other. Morning. All of this is ended before we can have embodied language. It has to end. We have to end it ourselves. Nobody can end it for us. We have to say this to ourselves. And so, all the people who are not willing to listen to others, who feel they want to argue with them, of course they are reactive, of course they are lashing out, and they are trying to get people off their back, and they're fighting back, and they're standing up, they're making their voice heard, all of that. It's understandable in the light of how disembodied language works, but it never results in embodied language. It cannot. Because it has to stop before embodied language can occur. And so, morning. And so, that is the point I'm making in this. That's the point I'm making in this video. That you have to stop it, and you in 2025 you have to do what it takes, which means talk with yourself, listen to yourself, so that your disembodied language is stopped. So that your disembodied language is acknowledged as it is and is stopped. Because it only stops if it is acknowledged as it is. Yeah. And it is because you have said it. It is because you have heard it. And you have said it to yourself. You have not said it to somebody else. No, you have said it to yourself. And yes, once you've said it to yourself, you can say it to others, like I do. Yeah? But that's different, because I say to you what I say to myself. Yeah? Walking the walk and talking the talk, or whatever they call that. Yeah? So all that's wonderful, smart ass expressions that we have for stuff that we don't do. Yeah? Getting your head out of your ass. That's another way to put it. Yeah? Stop talking like a chicken without a head. Yeah. Embody your language. Yeah, all wonderful terms, but useless, utterly useless pipe dreams. Becoming conscious, being mindful, All just useless, completely, utterly useless, because none of it has ever led to embodied language. Couldn't lead to embodied language. Yeah.